Encapsulation and abstraction. This will be our today's topic. They are not limited to any specific chapter. In general, in C++, whenever if someone asks you the question that why we use object oriented programming, so we start with that, okay sir, in object oriented programming we have different features. So those features are like, in object oriented programming is first of all it's object oriented programming, right? But when we say this, like, what is the actual meaning of this, that word, that it is object oriented programming? So we can say, okay, that in this system we use a object and a class, and for each of this class we have some predefined member variables and member function. They have some access modifiers and so on. So to put it in a simpler terms, the term object oriented programming, or in C++, we have some features that defines or that differentiate between C and C++. So one of them is inheritance. In C programming language, inheritance was not possible. Number two was the different access modifiers, public, private, protected. Okay. Number three was function overloading. We have seen that in C++ we can use multiple function with the same name but different signature. When I say different signature, I refer to that types of number of variables, the order of those variables, and also we also mean that what was the last one? Yeah, the type of the variable, the number of the variables, and the order of the variables, or the parameters. And then in our last class we have discussed about function overriding, that whenever we are using inheritance, what we can do, we can have the same name but we can write a new definition for the function. And then this comes this encapsulation and abstraction. So normally encapsulation means that whenever you encapsulate something or whenever you hide something. So in all C++ programs, it composed of the two following fundamental elements. We have a program statement, that is our code, and we have program data. In every program, we have some data, and we have a code that handles the data, that performs actions, and they are called functions. So if I let's talk about the example that we're practicing, the employee class. In the employee class, employee enters the information about his name, his salary. All this information is stored into our program, and then the program prints it. So the code that takes the input and prints it, there the program statement, the code, it can be a specific printf, the console output, it can be a function, and the data is that the values that you give input. Now, encapsulation is an object-oriented programming concept. What that does, that binds together the data and the functions that manipulates the data. So encapsulation, what it does, it binds together. That means it connects the data and the functions that manipulate the data. But in any program, we do the same thing, right? Then why we're calling it encapsulation? Because in C++, in the object-oriented programming, in the encapsulation, what we do, we keep the data both safe from the outside interference and misuse. So in object-oriented programming, we do this encapsulation in a way so that the data is actually safe from outside interference, number one, so that no one else can manipulate the data, and number two, misuse of the data. So data encapsulation led to the important OOP concept of data hiding. So we will hide the data so that some other people cannot misuse or steal our information. So this is the first idea of encapsulation. Now, the data encapsulation is a mechanism of building the data and the function that use C++. Now, what it does, it supports the properties of encapsulation, the C++, and data hiding through the creation of user-defined types called classes. So far we have studied a class is a user-defined data type or user-defined data structure. So now we know that the C++ supports the properties of encapsulation, hiding the data through the creation of user-defined types. So now we can say, to ensure the data is hidden or protected, we have actually created the classes. But previously we didn't talk about this. We first learned what is class. Now when I say that we created classes for data encapsulation, now it will make more sense, because you have already familiar with the classes, how it does, how it works. Okay, you are familiar with the access modifiers. So now I can give you the full picture. Now we already have studied that we can contain private, protected, and public members, and we also know that by default all the classes are private. So again, the data in C++, it supports the properties of encapsulation and the data hiding through the creation of user-defined data types called classes. And in these classes, what we do, we have different access modifiers called public, protected, and public private. And by default, all the members are private. Next. So this is an example of a program. So this is a class called box class, where you have a method, public method, get volume, where you can get the volume, length, breadth, and height. Okay, and these are the private variables. So we know that if the variables are private, if you want to access them, you need a function. You cannot directly access private members from outside the class. So to access the private members from outside the class, okay, you need to have a functions. So here is these are three private variables, and this function get volume, it helps to return the multiplication of these three parameters. Now, you already know this, but let me discuss it again. The variables length, breadth, and height are private. This means that they can be accessed only by the other members of the box class. So inside this class, anyone can access it, but outside this class, outside this two bracket. Okay, so this is the class bracket, class boundary, we can say. So outside this class boundary, no one can access these variables. So that is what means to be private. So they can be accessed only by other members of the box class and not by any other part of your program. This is one way to encapsulation is achieved. So this is one way to protect your data. To make parts of the class public, what we do, we must declare them after the public keyword. So we do the public keyword, we use some functions, same way we did here. So we created part of the class is public. That means, okay, if you want to access the data, you can come to this part. Finally, making what we can do, we can use a public keyword, or we can use another concept that we didn't discuss before, but today I will discuss that, making one class a friend of another expose, a friend function, or friend variable. So we will discuss what is a friend function a bit, but before going to that, let's just understand that there is only two way we can access the information. One is by using the public members, another through the member functions. Oh, sorry, friend function. So the ideal is to keep as many of the details of the each class hidden from all other classes possible. So whenever you are writing a class, or whenever you are writing a program, okay, to make sure that your program is encapsulated, what you will do, you will try to write the program in a way so that each class, okay, the details of each class is hidden from all other classes and as much as possible. So you will try to hide as much as possible. Okay, you will first make everything private and then see if okay, so if I make everything private, then how can I access the information? So then you will just only create small functions so that you can access the information. So this is our main idea of encapsulation, that whenever we create a class, we try to make everything private. But the problem is, if we make everything private, we cannot access the informations. And then there comes the public keyword that helps us to access the information, but through some function, or we can use a friend function. Now this is one program that we already know. So this is a program called error class. So in this class we have this public constructor that actually initializes the value. We already know how the constructor work. Then we have a function, public function add number, that takes a number and then adds it to total. Okay, and then we have this another function, okay, that is get total, which returns the total. Finally, we have a private variable that is integer total. So we know from our knowledge so far that whenever the program starts adder a, it will create an object, and this object will be called add a dot add number. So this means you can access this add number function or this get total function, but you will not be able to access any other information that is private. So we already know it, but now we know that why we do it, okay, to ensure the security or the encapsulation. Now, above class add numbers together and returns the sum. We know it. The public member add num and get total are the interfaces to the outside world. That means these are the ways to communicate with the program. A user needs to know them to use the class. A private member is total is something that is hidden from the outside world. So to the user, this private member is always be hidden. Now the question is, okay, so if I hide everything, and now we know that using a public, we can access the information, then what's the point? Okay, because I can still access the information. So the thing is here, in these cases, we are not writing any details. We're just showing you that you can access the information. But in the normal cases, whenever you are trying to access these informations, they will actually verify whether you should be able to access the information. One example that I can give, let's assume that you are using your Facebook, okay, and then you want to see someone's ID. So when you go to someone's ID, okay, so what the Facebook checks first, okay, so whenever you are accessing that ID, if you are a friend of that person, okay, there can be three conditions: you are a friend of that person, or the ID belongs to you, and number three, the ID belongs to someone you don't know. So these are the three cases. Let me write it down here. Act one, the ID belongs to you. Number two, ID belongs to your friend. Number three, ID belongs to um, unknown person, okay, or someone you are still not friends in the Facebook. So whenever you see all of them are the same Facebook ID, okay, they are not different, okay. The information of suppose the name of my ID is Sakib, okay. So all of you are trying to see the information of this profile, okay. So whenever I want to access the information, whenever a friend of mine want to access the information, and whenever a person who is not known he wants to access the information, these are the same person, the same ID, but they call the same function, okay. They want to see the ID, but when I send the request, or I send the get the data, let's assume there's a function called get data that returns the information. So whenever it checks that, okay, the person who is requesting the information is actually the owner of the info ID, then he actually provides you all the informations. If he sees that ID belongs to a person who is the friend of Mr. Sakib, he then only returns the information that is available for friends. And if he sees that ID belongs to someone unknown, then he returns the information only available for unknown person, that is public post, okay. Now if there can be some other cases as well, okay, for example, if the ID belongs to me and I want to see the information, I can also edit the information. If the ID belongs to sorry, if the ID belongs to the sum of my friend, okay, so he wants to access the information, he will only can see what I have shared, but he will not be able to edit anything. He might be able to comment, okay. If the person is unknown person, okay, he will not be able to see, or he will not be able to post or comment anything. There's one another example can be that whenever we make a ID locked, okay, in that case the unknown people, they don't get to access any information, but the friend can still see it, to go to your profile and see the information. So all of this, okay, they're using the same function to return the information, but depending on who is requesting, we are actually adding different levels or different access, or we are hiding part of the data. So I hope this you'll be clear after we did this. So the second part is abstraction. Now, the data abstraction refers to providing only essential information to the outside world and hiding the background details. Now, don't confuse this with the data hiding that we learned in the first part, that is encapsulation. So in encapsulation, it means that I will try to hide as much data as possible, okay. I will not give you the access to the information. In abstraction, it means I will not tell you how things are done. So I have a class and somehow I have decided that this class will get this output. Let's assume that you guys haven't done the data structure course. Let me take another example. Oh, as I was saying, that whenever you use a Facebook, so you know that uh, you know what are the features of the Facebook, right? You can see that you can send message, you can send friend request, you can upload pictures, okay, you can see all the information. But do you know what happens in the background, how the Facebook is providing with the information? or how the, let's assume you can play a game, Candy Crush. Okay, you know how it works. You can play PUBG, you can play I don't know what are other popular games. Let's assume you can play Ludoster. Okay, so you know how this work. You can see that if I click this button, this happens. Okay, so you can see all the information, all I can see that you can see all the output. Okay, but do you see that what, how this output is being processed, or the how the information is being processed? You don't see the how the algorithm. Here there's another example. So let's assume a TV. Okay, so whenever you turn on the TV, you can change the channel of the TV. Okay, you see that you can different animations, you can see the sounds. Okay, you can hear the sound, adjust the volume. So you can interact with the TV, but do you know that how it actually works? Okay, so this is the concept of abstraction. That means you can you will get the information you need. You can communicate with the TV, or you can communicate with the Facebook, but you will not know how it actually works. The algorithm is actually will be hidden from you. So this is the concept between abstraction. And the first, encapsulation means it will protect the data, and abstraction means it will not reveal how the code actually work. So we can say the abstraction is basically protecting the code or the programming, that how the program actually works, so that no one can copy your program. And encapsulation, it will protect the data so that no one can modify the data. There are some more examples we'll discuss, but just keep this two in mind. Abstraction will protect your code, okay, protect your program. The information needed to run the program will be available, but how they work will not be available. And in encapsulation, we are more focused on the protecting the data, so the user, as we provide as less much possible. So let's go to the next slide. Now, in terms of C++ programming, class provides the great level of data abstraction. We know because the class actually provides with public, private, and protected. They provide sufficient public methods to the outside world to play with the functionality. So you can access information, you can search information. Okay, you can manipulate the objects. Okay, now here is the second example. Let's think about a sort function that sorts your data. Okay, but you know how the sort function work. You know that if I click the sort function to sort the data, if I click the search button, Google will provide me with all the informations I need. But how the informations will be provided, the functionality, okay, it is not given to you. So we can see that the functionality could change between the release of the program or the library. So whenever you are playing a game or you are using a Facebook, you will see that Facebook is doing the same thing, but it's sending you update. Okay, so that means the Facebook is changing behind the screen how the code work. They solve different problems, they make change different icons. Okay, this change the methods. You'll see if you use a Facebook Lite or Facebook, you'll see there are new option where there's a button called store. You can also watch video. So Facebook is incorporating new and new functions every day. But still the basic tasks, you can share photos, you can send message to your friend, they are still the same. Now, what is the benefit? Okay, I have told a lot of things about like how it works. So what is the benefit? The benefit is, first of all, the class internals are protected from the inadvertent user level errors. So by mistake, okay, if you do something, okay, you will not be able to delete Facebook. Okay, so like I had one of my cousin, so he by mistake he actually deleted the Facebook app from the mobile. So he was like very scared that bhaiya, I have deleted Facebook, what will happen? My mother also uses the Facebook. So he was scared that just because the Facebook app is not in my mobile, he thought that Facebook app is gone from everywhere. Okay, just like whenever the child breaks a thing, so everyone actually, the thing is gone, same way. But you get the idea. So whenever user make any errors, okay, the code will not be, or the data will not be harmed. Okay, the class implementation may evolve over time, how the data will be handled, how the security will be handled. For example, previously Facebook only used email to log in. Now you can use your mobile number as a verification as well. Okay, so there are a lot of changes are being made. So these two important advantage that we have, that we can change the code without changing that much, because the user don't need to know how things work, they just need to use the functions properly. You don't need to know how a friend request is getting sent, you just need to send the friend request. You don't need to know that how whenever I post a picture, how it's getting to other people's timeline, or sorry, other people's feed. I just need to send the data. So how the Facebook work is up to them. Okay, so their data is protected, their program is protected, the implementation is protected, and same way data is protected as well. If the implementation changes, only the class code needs to be examined to see what effect the change may have, and it's also make the program easy to change. Okay, so that's all about our today.